Well, good evening. If it's Saturday night, we must be back on the college basketball coast-to-coast platforms, ready to chat up everything that has happened on yet another wild conference day of play on a Saturday in January in college basketball. Thank you for finding us, however and wherever you have found us, on all the different platforms of college basketball coast-to-coast on Twitter. The CBB coast-to-coast Twitter handle is alive and electric. The YouTube page on Facebook. I am merely the somewhat capable host, TJ Rives. Maybe you're hearing us on podcast after the fact. We did the show live on Saturday night. Apple, Spreaker, Spotify on the pod. I got special guests hanging out with me as well to talk college basketball tonight. Hello, Jason Powers, my wingman. We're both based in the Tampa Bay area. Good to see you, my friend. How are things on a Saturday where we've seen a bevy of big-time college basketball action?
And we got friends of ours that are in the middle of this ice storm, might be listening to us Saturday night or Sunday morning as they're snuggled up. Hopefully the power's not going out. They're not freezing to death, but keep hanging in there, people. We're thinking about you all throughout
There's some 34 states being affected by this nasty winter storm, in particular in the Southwest, the Southeast, and it's all headed east. Big time freezing rain, sleet, snow, freezing temperatures. It's ice. It's bad. And this is the point in time in the program that you and I point out. We live in the Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater area, and it's 80 degrees on Saturday, and it's 80 more on Sunday. Just how it goes.
Or you might be sitting in the Atlanta airport waiting for a flight that ain't coming.
Or Charlotte or Dallas. Et cetera. Good luck with all that. We're here to provide here on college basketball coast to coast. Again, I thank Jason for hanging out with me. Ari Russell will be here in a few minutes. We got some Big East to talk about. Ari's in New York City. He will talk about the UConn overtime win over Villanova, thrilling game. You know, I'm getting older, and we keep doing this late on Saturday night. I start having to recollect that was earlier today. That was not yesterday.
Noon.
It was at noon Eastern, and they played a bunch of games at noon because they were rushing to get teams out in the Eastern time zone in particular,
Kentucky
to get back home.
11, right? I think.
Yeah, there were several games that were moved up that we will go over. But you're right, Kentucky played very early. The Texas-Houston game got moved up by like 5 hours. The North Carolina-Virginia game was supposed to be later in the day, got moved up to noon, and on down the list. And the bad weather is going to continue again. Apparently on Sunday and Monday, it's headed to the east and the northeast. So they're much more equipped to handle it than the South is, that's for sure. So good luck with all of this with the weather. But plenty to go over. Ari will talk Big East. Rick Pitino, Jason, got his 900th win in his college coaching career. That's incredible. Earlier today for St. John's, they appear to be back on their feet. They rallied to win against Xavier. Ari will have some thoughts on that and whatever else is on his mind, ACC, Big Ten, et cetera, whatever he likes.
Did you see how the articles worded that? They did not say it was his 900th win, his 900th on-court win, because 123 of them got wiped away with the whole Louisville scandal. The narrative said on-court win, not necessarily coaching win that counts in the record book. So interesting how they worded that.
Semantics, but yes, you're right. Well done on pointing that out. And of course, he was in the NBA. He was in the Greek League. He's won more than 900 on-court games total. It's just the college basketball ones we care about. All right, so Ari will have some stuff on that. Later on in the program, Matt Zemek will be here, our Western insider, our West Coast bureau chief. He's now based in the Rocky Mountains of Denver, Colorado. He'll have a lot on Arizona's win. What a tremendous game for Texas Tech and Houston out of the Big 12. A.J. DeBonsa was phenomenal for BYU against Utah tonight. The freshmen were going off all over the place. Flemings, the outstanding shooting guard for Houston, went nuts for them today. Matt will have thoughts on
Illinois.
Yeah, what got into that kid, the freshman who made 9 threes in their upset of Purdue. So Matt will have thoughts on all of this in a little bit. So again, thank you for finding us here as we do this live tonight. Give me an overall thought or two. You and I are in the Sunshine State. The one big upset, I guess, early on here in the day or earlier in the day is the Florida Gators being beaten at home by Auburn earlier today. Auburn jumped all over them in the first 5 minutes of the game. They were up like 15-5. They were up by 15 still late in the first half. Double figures most of the second half. Keyshawn Hall had 24 for Auburn. This was a shocking result on a day when a lot of the better teams in the top 10 won or survived. Florida did not, Jason.
Biggest win of Stephen Pearl's career so far, taking over for his dad. Impressive to me. They held Florida under 60 for 95% of that game. Florida barely got to the mid-60s late there with a couple garbage points there at the end. Huge win holding them. First time since 96 that Auburn has won in the O-Dome.
How about that?
Years.
That's impressive. And Auburn has not been very good for a lot of this season, but they look good today. Florida's guards had problems again today. So that was interesting. Again, that is in our state. Another big overarching theme is that Arizona and Duke keep flexing their muscle. Arizona blasted West Virginia at home. West Virginia had beaten Kansas at home. They had come out to Arizona and beaten Arizona State a couple of nights ago.
Yeah.
They just were not really ever in it. Arizona got up by 10 early, up by 25 in the first half. Duke also had some problems in the first 10 minutes with Wake Forest at home at Cameron, but they rolled. Carlos Boozer's oldest son, Cam Boozer, was dominant again. How good are Arizona and Duke in your estimation right now?
They seem to be the two top of the leaderboard here. I would say they're probably 1, 2, and definitive 1 seeds for sure. And I think they're probably a step above the next tier of teams who we think are maybe 3 through 5, 3 through 6. But yeah, I mean, just good teams. And again, we know Arizona's been good, but can Arizona do it in March? And that's always been the question with Arizona, even with Tommy Lloyd there. We know Shires are really doing a really good job there at Duke with the Boozer twins and all that. Big win for North Carolina. Their biggest ever comeback win at Virginia today. I think they were down 15 or 16. So that was a huge win there for Hubert Davis.
Remember, they lost both of the games out in the San Francisco Bay Area back about a week ago. And there were people suddenly questioning Hubert Davis again.
Yep.
They missed the NCAA tournament 2 years ago. But nothing shuts everybody up like a big road win against a top 10 team. And Virginia has been really good this year. And North Carolina was just the better team in the second half.
Again, huge comeback. And again, we'll talk about the theme of the day today is freshmen and some comebacks because St. John's had we'll talk to Ari, huge comeback to win at Xavier. And then, we had some monster performances, individual performances. So have we ever had a day, TJ? I bet this has probably never happened. I bet we've never had a day where 3 freshmen scored 40 plus in a game.
You'd have to look for it. Freshmen were a much bigger deal, like in the 80s before you could go. But yeah, there were some massive games today. That's for sure, including this game we'll talk about later with Texas Tech and Houston, where the Red Raiders won in Lubbock, battling the freezing rain and the sleet to get the crowd in there at Lubbock. They moved the game up earlier. It had the big crew, Dan Schulman and Jay Billis there again. They were supposed to do the game later in the evening, but they moved it up. Right. And JT Toppin was great. Christian Anderson was great. And again, Fleming's the guard, who's only a freshman, who is projected to be a top 5 NBA pick. He was tremendous with 42 points. That's a Houston record. So we'll talk more about that as things go along tonight. It is college basketball coast to coast. If you're just finding us on all of the platforms, we're doing this live on Saturday night as most of the action has ended for the evening, including Tennessee beating Alabama. We'll circle back to that, Jason, in a little bit. Tennessee beating Alabama on a controversial week for Alabama, where they've reinstated a player who's been playing professionally in the G League and the NBA's minor league. We'll get into all of that, but Tennessee won the game tonight in Tuscaloosa. So the SEC appears to be fairly wide open. That's for sure.
And their big freshman was it Ament? He had almost 30 tonight too.
Nate Ament was great. Gillespie, the guard, was great, and Alabama could not make the threes. They've got some injuries. So, again, full credit to them. All right, why don't we do this? Let's spice it up a little bit and bring in another one of my colleagues, my wingman, Coach Ari. Ari Russell is back aboard from New York City. Ari has been with me for the better part of 20 years. Sirius XM Radio, Fox Sports Radio, TuneIn, etc., covering college hoops, the NCAA tournament, the Final Four. All right, give me some opening thoughts here. Big East is on our brain, but maybe a couple of opening thoughts from you, Ari, on what you saw today.
Yeah, I mean, again, listening to you guys, obviously I'm in the New York area. The weather played a deal with the scheduling, with a lot of games today being pushed a lot early. Is it pushed in or pushed out? I never know that. It's kind of like on the wagon, off the wagon for drinking.
Pushed up or pushed back, I don't know.
Yeah, one of those. So, but they scheduled earlier than they initially were, many games today. So we had a huge slate of huge basketball games between noon and 4 today, where normally they would be kind of spread out, throughout the day and have a lot of good afternoon, evening games and into the night. So that was kind of like an interesting little tidbit going on today. So there was just loaded games. Surprising, the Big 12 kind of showing its real gauntlet that it's going to be, especially at the top there with Texas Tech getting that win against Houston. Obviously Iowa State gets another win there in the Big 12. Big East, UConn is able to survive Villanova, and that was an impressive win. Georgetown played a game against Providence where Ed Cooley faced against his old team, and Georgetown's been struggling. They get the win, come back from 18 down. You guys were mentioning St. John's big comeback again. Now they're sit there. That conference is really going to be – they'll have multiple teams in, but that's going to be a two-team race at the top there between UConn and St. John's, which was pretty much what was expected going into the season, and that seems to be playing out. And St. John's getting that win. And it was funny mentioning that 900. I saw 900 victories for Rick Pitino, Jason, and I was just thinking, I was like, what does that mean? He's kind of like
on-court wins.
Right. They specified the on-court wins because they took away the Louisville
that's
wins.
Stupid. I feel like, he's like on playing Contra, up, down, left, left. Like.
Did you just make a Nintendo reference? Not even Nintendo 64, like the old Nintendo reference with Contra. Oh, my God. All right. So you're in New York City.
Yeah.
Pitino was taking a lot of criticism, and they are better. What have you seen? They got that Seton Hall win back, about a week ago or 2 weeks ago, right? They got the Seton Hall win. They got another win recently. They were down double figures early on in the second half of this game with Xavier early in the day. What did you see out of them? What's going on?
Well, there's, look, the roster was not, it was pretty, not completely revamped, but a lot of new players going in. It takes a lot of time to get teams like that haven't had that much, players like that haven't had that much time together on the court. I think earlier in the season, they had a very tough out-of-conference schedule and didn't particularly get enough wins that a lot of people had anticipated, perhaps. I think they were preseason top 10 team, but those preseason rankings are totally meaningless. These teams are, a lot of talent on paper, but I think they're starting to come together now, starting to figure out kind of working within Rick Pitino's system. Completely different team from last year. Last year's team was this team is still focused on defense because Pitino is always going to be a defensive-minded coach. Last year they were really just strangle you defensively, but really weren't particularly good behind the arc at all. Probably one of the worst three-point shooting teams, and not particularly good free throw shooting teams. This year they're much improved in both of those categories. So they're starting to get into their rhythm, it seems. I think that we're starting to figure out Ejiofor's kind of position in there. I mean, Ejiofor came back, obviously. One of the more dominant big men in college hoops that I think a lot of people forgot about, but he's starting to kind of get into his rhythm, and the team is starting to figure out, where he is in their system. And I think that's good for Rick Pitino's squad, the Red Storm, or the Red Men, as they used to be called in our days.
All right, give me a thought about Villanova. They seem to be back on track here under Willard. They're much more competitive, and Obviously they took UConn to the wire today, losing overtime. Give me a thought or two about the resurgence of kind of Villanova.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not particularly shocked that that they're playing much better under Willard. Obviously, almost every team has had massive overhauls of their roster because of NIL, transfer portal, etc. But I really don't think that Kyle Neptune was particularly a good hire. I get that he was a major, top assistant under Jay Wright. But I just didn't think that he was particularly well suited to handle that type of pressure that Villanova had, and that pressure was created by the success of Jay Wright. Kevin Willard has had success at multiple stops already. So in this particular case, I just think that his system that he puts in place and the players have bought into it. So I'm not particularly shocked that they have kind of come back, and they do look like a legitimate tournament team at this point. So it's good to see for Villanova and Villanova fans. They played really well against UConn today. Just UConn is.
They controlled the whole game, and then UConn took it from them, Ari, at the end. And the veteran players like Ball, Caravan hit the big shot. They came up large. But I was impressed with Brennan, the big man, inside for Villanova. They got a couple of other guards that can score. This was quite the battle, and UConn gets their 15th straight win. But as I put up on the screen, it took overtime to do it, and it wasn't even decided till the final 30 seconds of overtime.
Right. So, yeah, exactly. And look, this UConn team is like you said, 15 wins in a row, and they're red hot, and they're going to get everybody's best shot. But you like you're saying, Jason, Villanova is significantly improved. I mean,
good to see that. It's good for the league. That's good for the league.
It's great for the league. It's great for the league. To have a team that can be competitive like that. Again, it's a road game too. So it wasn't like Villanova was at home. And playing in stores is unless they're in Hartford today.
They were in Hartford today, yes.
Particularly sure. But playing in Hartford, that's still, one of the, UConn home territory, and taking them to overtime. That's good. But, hey, no one counts wins for, you don't get the win in the column if you lose the game. You could talk about them being improved, but they still lost the game. Want to see them kind of close out and maybe knock off UConn or knock off St. John's, and get a couple of, road games in a row in this league, and start separating themselves from everybody else. I mean, I'm looking at them. They're probably, the third best team in the conference. Seton Hall had started off red hot. They're kind of falling off. They lost to DePaul today. How about DePaul? DePaul has 4 wins in the conference. They're 12-8 overall. I mean, DePaul has been, the bottom of the shoe in this league for years now, and they're definitely improved. So Seton Hall was ranked a couple of weeks ago when we were talking, and they're kind of on a slide. So right now it's looking in the Big East. It's looking like obviously UConn, St. John's at the top, and Villanova's right there. And I expect them to continue to improve and be a force coming down the stretch here in the Big East.
Hey,
great stuff. Yep, go ahead.
Hey, real quick. I know it's not a Big East team, but give me a thought about Syracuse. They've just been in the land of nowhere for the last several years with Autry. What's going on with Syracuse?
Okay, so I was watching that game obviously because they were playing Miami, my alma mater. So I was watching that. I watched that entire game. So look. They've got a lot of talent, size. Anthony's son, Carmelo Anthony's son, has got some skills. He's going to have to. I expect him to probably play about 3 years in college. He's a tremendous athlete. They're just missing kind of quality guard play or consistent guard play. Got an excellent front court defensively as well. Can block a lot of shots. But Miami is just, they're led by Donaldson. Syracuse is just, they're missing pieces at this point. I'm not particularly impressed with Autry, and I'll tell you one thing that really stuck out to me at the end of this game. I mean, they were down, but they brought it down to 9 at some point. I mean, they pretty much trailing the whole game. They never had a lead in the entire game. But they were down by like 13, 14 down, and they got it down to 9. Under a minute to go, it was like a minute 20, and they weren't fouling. And
Right.
Miami had the ball. I just didn't understand that, and they didn't foul again.
Well,
it's
he is struggling. They lost to Boston College back
that
2
was
games
bad
ago.
loss.
They lost to Virginia Tech at home on the midweek and blew that game in the final
Right.
2 minutes with some questionable shot selection and some different stuff that happened. And now you're detailing this today,
Yeah,
where
this
you're
was
strategically. You wonder, because again, Red Autry played for Jim Boeheim. He is
Red
an
Autry
alum.
is one of my favorite Syracuse players.
I got you,
time.
but how much rope does he get here if they continue to flounder? What do you think?
I don't think much. You know, I look there. I think this was their 3rd straight conference loss.
Correct. Now
they're
3 and 4,
3-0.
3 and 4 in the ACC.
I mean, this was a must-win game for them, and Miami. I mean, Miami was also had a 2-game losing streak as well. So both teams were coming off a 0-2 stretch here, and Miami was going in, you know, on the road in this one. But Syracuse is struggling, man. They've got talent, man. Look, they early in the season they played some really close games against high competition, where I was like, you know what, this team is going to be a tough out, you know, in the ACC this year. The ACC clearly a lot better than it was a year ago or last 2 years.
Hey,
much more competitive.
While you're on that point, we were just talking before you got in here about North Carolina
big win.
and the win over Virginia. Say something about that,
right?
Real quick.
Oh, I mean, look, Hubert Davis is. I mean, if his seat isn't hot, his seat is starting to pick up that temp. It was. They were really losing patience there in Chapel Hill with them. The fan base hasn't been particularly happy about it. But this is something that Hubert Davis seems to do every time the temperature goes up on his seat. He seems to find a way to get a big time win, and he did that today. And the Tar Heels came out with a massive victory against a very, very, very good UVA team. That was I feel like they played with a sense of urgency that they may have lost over the last few weeks. And, you know, that would have been their 4th conference loss, by the way, if they didn't win this game today.
Yep.
That's a big hole to be in the conference right now, considering where Duke is, and you've got obviously Virginia up there. NC State is 2 losses. Clemson's another formidable team. Miami is 5-2 at this point in the conference. So that would put them well behind the sticks there. And you know, this was a game of urgency, and the Tar Heels delivered. So a massive win for Hubert Davis. It should help them build confidence. Look, they're a talented team. We know that. And they just hadn't been playing particularly well. I think they went out west and really tripped up. A lot of people are going out west and getting tripped up by Stanford or Cal. They're either splitting it or some of them are losing 2 games. You know, so it's interesting to see how that dynamic is playing into the conference overall, because Stanford's knocked off a couple of teams out there at home. Yeah, big time win for the Tar Heels today. Much needed win, kind of keeps them right there at pace. Also, I'll mention another big time win, much needed win as well for Louisville. They needed that win today really badly, because if they would have lost, they would have had 4 losses in conference. But they had Mikael Brown Jr. back, so I kind of have to take, you know, a lot of those losses they had without him, with the fact that they didn't have Mikael. I mean, he's a tremendous
player.
He is a game changer.
And by the way, Louisville needed that because they're going to Cameron Monday night to play Duke. Good luck on that. But Duke,
they'll have Brown back this time. Last time they played them very tough, and they didn't have Brown. Now they have Brown coming in there. And trust me, he's a mismatch problem for anyone that they play. He's a big guard. He's like 6'5", point guard that can shoot, that can, you know, bring it to the hoop. So, you know, the other little boozer is going to have his hands full trying to guard him. And Shire's going to have to figure out what to do with him.
We got to roll in a minute or two. Anything else you want to go over? What about the freshman going off today?
Yeah, well,
Dabansa with 43 for Brigham Young in the game with Utah earlier today, and they won. Earlier today, Kingston Flemings, the outstanding guard for Houston, 42 points. No Houston freshman. How about this, Powers? No Houston freshman, not Elvin Hayes, not Akeem Olajuwon, Clyde Drexler, any of them got 42 points in a game. Flemings got 42, but it was a loss.
Well, going
today
to
Elvin
Hayes, by the way, I don't think they played freshman then, so
you might be right. Good point on that. But and then you had the kid from Illinois that made the 9 3-pointers in the game in the upset of Purdue. Some freshmen made some statements in the games today.
Yeah, big time. Today, and I'll go back to my bias. And in Miami, Shelton Henderson I think he had about 20 today as well, not 40, but had 20 today and was really dominant down the stretch for Miami. Look, and he's not someone that they're even talking about in these other groups. Obviously you got Stevenson and Boozer and out in Arizona as well. So I mean, this is a loaded freshman class, unbelievable. It's probably the best freshman class that I can remember, and we had a pretty darn good one a few years ago. This one blows that one out the water. I mean, this is going to be a heck of a tournament with these freshmen coming in here, man. I mean, they are really game records.
Yep.
Here.
They're only getting better.
What a day today, though. You're right. I heard you earlier. I can't remember any time they had 3 freshmen in the same day scoring 40 points.
That's got to be some kind of, certainly in the prominent games like this. They were all big games where this happened. And again, the kid is a virtual unknown to most of the country. I'll get the name. Keaton Wagler is his name. I got to confess, my hand is up. The podcast audience can't see me. Jason's laughing. Ari's laughing. I didn't know that name. We know his name now after he set an Illinois scoring record with 46 points. They have never had any player at any level, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, score 46 or more in a Big Ten game ever. How about that?
And the most points ever scored in a win over a top 10 team as well on the road.
That's crazy.
In the history of college basketball.
It's a freshman that did it as well with 9 3-pointers. He was 9 for 11 from 3. Anything else we left out, Ari Russell, on this Saturday night?
A team that can no longer be under the radar. Nebraska remains undefeated.
Wow.
Again, the mayor is calling all the right shots there in his administration. There in Lincoln. And who would have thought that Nebraska basketball will we be talking about in the Big Ten and not the black shirts in football? We're talking about Nebraska basketball here.
This is our version of Indiana football, baby. Indiana football.
Oh, there you go.
And look,
there you go. Congrats.
And your Hoosiers beat Ari's Canes in football, and Ari doesn't have the black armband on, even if he does have the black outfit on. But back to Nebraska, they had an injury coming off the weekend. One of their key starters was hurt, and it didn't matter. Price Sanford was making the big shots. They were down in the game at Minnesota, and they won the game. I realize they're on a gauntlet where they're about to play several big games with Michigan. That one's on deck. They got to go out west and play USC and UCLA. They play Purdue later in the year. They play Iowa later in the year. They're probably going to take a loss. We would all agree, right? Yeah. They're going to probably take maybe a couple of losses. Yes. But what a story this is at 20-0 to start the year for Nebraska, and they keep winning road games. Already finish up on that point. Not easy to win in a lot of conferences on the road, much less the Big Ten, where they've beaten Illinois at Illinois, they've beaten Indiana at Indiana, they beat Minnesota at Minnesota today.
Exactly. Those road wins are massive. Again, like you said, that gauntlet, though, is serious. I don't expect them to continue their undefeated streak. But Nebraska is a legit team. I don't know if they're a Final Four team, but they're a legit team right now. And they're a team that is
I know Matt
standing
Zemek,
alone in the Big Ten.
Matt Zemek will come on and say it. They've never won an NCAA tournament game as a program. Forget about being a Final Four team. Can they win a game in the Big Dance? Coming up, but they're certainly
a 1 seed right now, TJ. They're a 1 seed.
Yeah, I mean they certainly look the part right now. We'll see what happens when they get to March, especially when they face the adversity of an injury and they're on the road and they still won earlier today.
If they can get through that gauntlet and only get like 1 or 2 losses in that gauntlet that you speak of, look out, man. Like look out. I don't expect them to go undefeated, no way. But, if they can knock off 1 or 2 of those ranked teams in their conference, down this stretch here, buddy. Iowa's another team though you really got to look out for. Boy,
Yeah,
that
the
team
Big
is
Ten.
another underrated. Big Ten is really good this year, and they've got a lot of really good teams. Not only just at the top, but in the middle level too. That Iowa's a team you got to look out for. Really well coached, a lot of experience coming in there because you have what's his name from Drake coaching, and the point guard there is also a guy that's probably played 1 million minutes of college basketball.
Right.
Sturtz.
Bennett Sturtz,
Bennett
correct.
Sturtz. Yeah, that guy's a good ball player. So look out for them.
Great stuff with us tonight. Again, follow him at Ari Russell on social media. Always love his contributions talking the college hoops. My friend, I appreciate you hanging with Jason and me tonight on another live edition.
Are you on shovel duty tomorrow with the snow coming, man?
What's the update on how much snow you're supposed to get in the NYC? What's the update?
Man, I don't
Do we
know.
know?
Anywhere between 3 and 23 inches. So
That's quite.
and no shovel duty for me,
I think your new mayor, Madami, put that out there that the snowfall could be. That's where you brought it up. Anywhere between 3 and 23. I don't know how you came up with 23, but that is a wide range.
Yeah,
on how
it was
much
funny
it might
though
be.
because it's kind of like it's true. It could be like that. So, but
It's kind of like when the weather forecasters down here in the South, as you know, or especially in Florida, say, yes, it could rain this afternoon between noon and 10. We know it's the afternoon with
like
the afternoon rain.
The guy's going to show up, right? So, but
waiting on the cable guy is true.
Yeah, so
all right.
No shovel for me though, because I live in an apartment building, so
there you go.
But still, he's got the car.
I got to get.
You might have to
out.
get the shovel and get the car out because that's another factor if you're parked outside and on the street, etc.
Yeah,
good luck with all of that, with the freezing cold temperatures and the snow moving its way and the
you guys have it like
cold weather.
78 degrees right
and
now.
we're in the 80s in Florida. Come south
Maybe
as
like
you.
40s in next week, middle of next week. It's getting to like the 30s down here. So.
All right, but we'll live. We'll survive through that. All right, have a great night. Thank you. I appreciate the insight as always, my friend.
All right, thank you.
There is Ari Russell with us tonight, Brother Powers. Again, let's get into a couple of other things. I know Matt Zemek will be joining us coming up to talk some Western basketball. We mentioned Florida in the SEC. We mentioned Tennessee. What about the controversy? Controversy aside, Tennessee got the win over Alabama. We've been talking earlier this week, you and I, on a couple of other platforms and a couple of other places about Charles Bediako, the Alabama player who last played in March of 2023. Now, 3 years later, almost, he's back after playing in the NBA G League, being reinstated by an Alabama State judge, saying, hey, he gets a temporary restraining order. He can play because of the NCAA rules. What are your thoughts on this controversy? It didn't help them in the end. Tennessee won the game tonight in Tuscaloosa.
They did. Alabama should be ashamed of themselves for, again, if this was 1 year ago, I could live with that. But this guy's been gone for 3 years. That's like me saying, yeah, I'm a 27-year-old former kicker. I want to apply for 1 more year of eligibility, and I find a judge somewhere that says, yeah, Jason, you can go play another year of college football. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It's a joke.
All right, so a couple of important points. We were wondering, about the academic part. He did enroll at the beginning of the spring semester, so he was enrolled. He has been taking classes, so that part is covered.
I'd like to see the attendance figures on that.
I would agree, and let's see the class load. What is he taking? Is he taking PE and general studies and study hall? Another thing is he is playing right now in the 5th and final year of his clock, what would be the 5 years of eligibility for him to be back. I know in your metaphor, you exaggerated that, hey, if you're 27, what did you joke earlier in the week? If Allen Iverson wants to come back and use his 2 years at Georgetown, and Iverson's, 50 years old now. But by the same token, he's within the 5 years of eligibility, and they do have an argument. I don't know if you would say it's a guaranteed argument, but it's a strong argument in front of the judge that the NCAA is once again doing it to themselves, contradicting with allowing players from Europe, even ones that have been drafted in the NBA draft, but if they didn't play in the NBA draft, they're allowing them to play. This kid Njai of Baylor is the one that's been playing over in the French European League. He was drafted in the first round of the NBA draft 2 years ago, never played in the NBA. and now wanted to come play college basketball, and the NCAA had no problem with allowing him to come play at Baylor in the Big 12. That's the Alabama argument.
I get it. I just think it's a joke. I think Nate Oates ought to be ashamed of himself. He did a terrible. He did a poor job recruiting a big man. Obviously, he didn't have enough size and whatever.
They've had injuries. They've had injuries also.
It's not good. I mean, again, if this happened to Bediako last year, I could live with it. But it's been 3 years. He made the decision to go to the draft. Didn't get drafted. Shame on you. I get it. People make mistakes, but you should not be allowed under any circumstance once you've been in college. The other kid, the only thing the other kid at Baylor didn't go to college. It's not like he played at a school, left to play in the French league. Bediako was at Alabama, made the decision to leave himself, and then you should not be able to come back in that kind of situation. I just think it's a bad look. I mean, Greg Byrne, that's where if you're an athletic director, you go to Nate Oates and say, Nate, we're not doing this, Nate. We're not supporting this. Because as you said, you can find a judge in any state in this country to give a temporary restraining order about anything.
Yeah. And it was favorable in this case because the judge too. How did the judge hear the case?
The season tickets in the mail.
The judge is an Alabama alum and a donor to the school, and how he didn't recuse himself, I don't know. But again, Tennessee deserves credit.
Yes.
Again, with Ament having a big game, 30-point night for him, Nate Ament, and Tennessee gets the win. By the way, that's 10 straight games now for the Alabama-Tennessee series that have been decided by single digits. They always seem to be close games. Yep. Tennessee got the win tonight in Tuscaloosa. Let's get some more insight. We've been talking a lot about what's going on in the East and the bad weather, et cetera. Let's swing out west. He's not in Denver Broncos attire as we look on college basketball coast to coast, but they will have an AFC title game later on Sunday with the Broncos and the Patriots. He's here to talk college hoops. Hello, Matt Zemek. Welcome into a Saturday night again on college basketball coast to coast. How are things? Some opening thoughts from you.
So I'm the West Coast bureau chief. It's really a down time for Western college basketball. It's not packing the same punch as we've seen in previous seasons. Previous years, guys, as you know, Mountain West would have 5, maybe even 6 teams in the NCAA tournament. It's looking like no more than 3. And Utah State took a couple hits. Did get an important win against Colorado State. On Friday, but still, Utah State's kind of fallen back to the pack a little bit. New Mexico with a very important win over Nevada, but San Diego State losing to Grand Canyon had to win today against UNLV, but that's not going to get San Diego State in the tournament. San Diego State needs to get hot, stay hot. San Diego needs a 9-1 in its next 10 games to feel good, because there's just no meat on the bone for the Aztecs in the non-con. That loss to Troy could haunt them all the way to Selection Sunday. And then Gonzaga barely inching by San Francisco by 2 points. The Braden Huff injury. This is a team that,
and if I'm not mistaken, if I can interject, he didn't play. And am I correct? Graham Ike didn't play in the game tonight. And I got to confess, I was not keeping up with this. I saw they were winning. And then they barely won. They were up 12, 14 points in the second half. They barely won tonight without Huff and without Ike. I don't believe Ike played either. Yeah,
this team, I cover UCLA, and we'll talk about the Bruins in a little bit. I covered the UCLA Gonzaga game mid-December. Ike and Huff were just absolutely dominating the Bruins front court. That was Gonzaga's matchup advantage in that game. So you take away Ike and Huff, it's a very hollowed out team. And this is not one of the better San Francisco Dons teams that we've seen in recent years. And yet Gonzaga still with a struggle at home in the kennel. So that tells you what the limitations are for this team without its front court stars. So Gonzaga is just kind of limping along right now. And then in the Big Ten.
One second. San Francisco had a 3-pointer for the win, by the way, in the final 5 seconds. They had the ball and a chance to win the game. So that was a near stunning upset with that comeback. I just thought I would interject that. All right, you were going to segue to what next? What else you like next, Matt?
Yeah, so the West Coast teams in the Big Ten. UCLA had a really good week. UCLA with the win over Purdue, that changed the equation. UCLA needed a high-end win like that. So UCLA is now on the good side of the bubble, but still the bubble. Like beating Northwestern today, that's just kind of a placeholder win, right? You're not going to shoot up the board because you beat Northwestern, but you avoid the bad loss. But UCLA is going to need to win some Big Ten road games against mid-tier teams. That's something UCLA has not done well. Lost to Ohio State, lost to Wisconsin, lost to Iowa. UCLA is going to need to beat some teams in that middle third of the Big Ten on the road to feel a little bit more solid about its NCAA tournament position. And then USC, disaster, an absolutely awful week, losing at home to Northwestern. Elijah Arenas, the 5-star freshman, Gilbert's son, he makes his debut, but he goes 3 of 15 from the field, misses a bunch of free throws, can't hit a three. And he frankly, he took too many shots. Let's just be honest about it. He needed to be distributing the ball to his teammates who were much more in rhythm. So USC plays at Wisconsin on Sunday during the AFC Championship game. You're not going to get a lot of TV ratings there, but that's a huge game for USC because of the loss to Northwestern. USC now on the wrong side of the bubble. USC was on the good side of the bubble a week and a half ago. Almost beat Purdue, but went 5 of 14 from the free throw line. And that's the craziest thing about USC basketball. Under Andy Enfield for over a decade, could not shoot free throws most of the time. Maybe had 1 or 2 teams that shot north of 75% from the free throw line, usually around 65 to 70%. And now it's continuing under Eric Musselman, and free throws just absolutely crushed this team. Missed 17 free throws against Northwestern after going 5 of 14 at the line against Purdue. Could have won both games. Instead went 0-2. So USC now on the wrong side of the bubble. And Oregon and Washington, they're going absolutely nowhere. Like their bubbles have already burst, and it's not even the end of January. So it's a real down year for college basketball in the West. There's no way to sugarcoat it.
And leave it to Mick Cronin, Mr. Curmudgeon. You have a huge win at Purdue, and all he does is complain about the scheduling and instead of giving his guys props for a huge win in West Lafayette.
Yeah, look, UCLA went to the Big Ten, so UCLA invited logistical complications.
They knew what they were signing up for.
They knew what they were signing up for.
Yes, but they were going to have to play in the Eastern time zone a bunch.
That said, it's not as though Cronin didn't have a point that, Purdue was staying in Los Angeles because it played USC on Saturday. UCLA's flying from Columbus. You'd think if you're playing a home game, you'd have at least the same kind of rest as your opponent, but Purdue had a little bit more of an advantage. But I will say,
they won the game.
Purdue.
That's Jason's point. They won the game.
Purdue. It's not the time to focus on that. You should be focusing on what a great moment this is for our team. This is our galvanizing experience. So totally agree with you on that. No question.
We're only going to be here a few more minutes. I love Matt Zemek's insight. It is in the West. It is Arizona, and you were a longtime resident in Arizona. They're really obviously good. You can give me some more on how good. They were impressive in whacking West Virginia today. Koa Pete, the freshman. They've got Bradley, the other freshman. They've got a couple of international players. Tommy Lloyd's done a tremendous job. I'm saying that. Your thoughts as Arizona remained unbeaten today with another win?
Just before I get to Tommy Lloyd, Tommy Lloyd with Mark Few at Gonzaga. He was Mark Few's lieutenant at Gonzaga for quite some time. And they go up against Randy Bennett and St. Mary's. And, Randy Bennett's known for having that Australian pipeline, specifically getting these international imports and integrating them into a lineup. But what Randy Bennett does, which is really impressive in its own way, out in Moraga, California, making St. Mary's an annually relevant program, it doesn't hold a candle to what Tommy Lloyd has done with his international pipeline. His international pipeline is several notches higher than what Randy Bennett delivers, because those international guys, they give Arizona toughness, like a junkyard dog identity. Arizona used to be a little bit too finesse, and Arizona's recent teams, they would rise or fall depending on whether Caleb Love was hitting his three-pointer. And it was just too much of a weather vane. You just can't have games depend so much on whether your star guard is hitting shots. remember when Arizona just absolutely dismantled Alabama? Like they were just dominating the glass. They go down to Birmingham and they just physically overpowered Alabama in what was essentially an Alabama home game. It wasn't, Tuscaloosa, but still Birmingham. That's a pro-Alabama environment. Arizona just punched him in the mouth.
By the way, Arizona went to UConn and beat UConn in stores earlier this year. We're not handing them the national championship yet, but they've got some wins. And again, they rolled today. Couple of minutes left here with Matt Zemek on college basketball coast to coast. Jason asked the question, can you remember another Saturday with 3 freshmen going off with 40 or more points in big-time games like this today, Matt? I don't know that there's another reference point besides what we saw today. Dabonsa, 43 for Brigham Young, again, if you're just joining us, in the game tonight with Utah. Earlier today, Kingston Flemings is the Houston player as a freshman with 42, was almost unstoppable against Texas Tech, but they lost the game. And then again, the player from Illinois, Keaton, I'm still trying to get the name right, that lit it up.
Wagler, I think.
Wagler, yeah. Keaton Wagler. 9 3-pointers made, and they stunned Purdue at Purdue. Pretty impressive Saturday in late January for the freshmen today in college basketball. Yes?
Yeah, no, I mean, Ari said it when he was on the show earlier, just what a phenomenal freshman class this is. We talk about the NFL draft, like the quarterback room is going to be really down. Well, it's the opposite in the 2026 NBA draft. Man, you're going to have so many elite high-end selections. Sometimes it's just like who's number 1 is like the big prize, and then it immediately falls off number 2, 3, 4. That you're not going to have that in this year's NBA draft. That's for sure.
How alarming is it back in that Houston Texas Tech game? Houston gives up 90 and they get crushed on the boards, out negative 16 on the boards. Obviously, that's probably a one-off, but how surprised were you that they just got
first time ever at Houston that Kelvin Sampson had a team give up 90? Matt Zemek, go ahead with your thoughts.
Yeah, I gave up 55 in the first half. That doesn't ordinarily happen. I would be a lot more concerned if this was the only time they met, but Houston did beat Texas Tech earlier in the season at Houston. So this was a revenge game for Texas Tech. And, Grant McCaslin's really good. Texas Tech has Toppin. They have Anderson. And, remember, they almost beat Florida to make the Final Four last season. One might say they should have beaten Florida to make the Final Four last season. So Texas Tech's really good. And, in terms of conferences, the broader story is the Big 12 and the Big 10 are going to dominate the top 2 seed lines like that. In terms of when we think about the NCAA tournament bracket, and hey, next week is the end of January, so we're almost in February. Like in like a month, we will be legitimately doing who's tomorrow.
7 weeks from tomorrow is Selection Sunday.
That's wild.
Yeah, we're already getting a little bit closer, and so the Big 12 and the Big 10, whether they are going to have the national title favorites. We can debate that, though. Arizona and Michigan are they're almost certain to be number 1 seeds. So like that right there gives them a path. But the Big 12 and the Big 10, of the top 2 seed lines, Duke will be a top 2 seed, but I don't think anyone in the SEC is getting a top 2 seed. Alabama falls again. Florida loses.
Yep.
The SEC, I don't think, is going to have a single team on the top 2 seed lines. So the Big 12 and the Big 10 are going to dominate. UConn will get a top 2 seed, but so UConn, Duke, and then 6 teams probably from the Big 12 and Big 10 in some combination.
And Gonzaga.
Gonzaga has to win out pretty much, probably to get a top 2 seed.
Listen, I always love the insight of one Matt Zemek, the West Coast bureau chief. We love his insight on all things college basketball. Read him at the USA Today Trojans Wire website. Also, the UCLA Bruins USA Today website. Love his insight on college basketball coast to coast.
Viva Jared Stidham tomorrow.
Oh, yes. The Broncos could ride to the Super Bowl on a backup quarterback. Does Matt Zemek know his history If I say to you the last time a quarterback did not start a regular season NFL game, made his first start, and won a playoff game in the playoffs with that first start, do you happen to know? You happen to know who it is? It's famous. No. It's Frank Reich in the great comeback against the Houston Oilers. Jim Kelly got hurt in the final regular season game. Reich played the next week in the wild card game. They were behind 35-3 and came back and won. That's 1992. That is 34 years ago. That's the last time it happened. I don't know if it's the only time. That's the last time it happened. If the Broncos get this tomorrow with a backup quarterback who did not start a regular season game.
And Jim Kelly came back and played the next week. Reich didn't even play the next week after the win.
Yeah. How about that?
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
Great stuff.
So Denver's going to need to control the ball for at least 38 minutes, if not 40, to win that game. That's how Denver's going to need to win that game.
It's a wild story because either Denver gets it with Sean Payton and a backup quarterback, or Mike Vrabel resurrects New England in one season to be in the Super Bowl, which would be wild. I love him for the college hoops. Follow him at Matt Zemek, Mattzemek. He's also up all night watching the Australian Open in tennis as well. If you
By the way, how about your boy Sinner getting the break of all time with the heat and the cramping last night, and then the roof closing, and he gets a 10-minute break because of the quirky rules they got down under. What a break for Sinner.
So yes, a little controversy there. Did you agree with that?
Or manna from heaven for the Sinner.
The Sinner, yes, got a blessing.
The American was about to pull off a stunning upset.
The Sinner said his prayers.
Listen to you with the puns. Powers and Zemek with the late night tennis.
Yes,
as well as the college basketball. I love it.
From Melbourne.
Matt Behave, thank you. Thank you for keeping us straight on college basketball coast to coast, my friend. Have a good night. We'll see what happens tomorrow with the Broncos. You're in Denver. We'll see what happens.
And it's almost February, so bracketology just around the corner.
This is January, but this is February. Stay tuned. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
We'll see you later. We appreciate him being with us. Did we leave anything else out?
We got one more for you.
What else you got for me tonight?
2.5 weeks ago, we had this guy on Dead Man Walking. And 2.5 weeks later, Mark Pope has ripped off 5 in a row at Kentucky.
Let's give some credit where it is due. Kentucky is on a roll. What do you attribute this to? Why have they won 5 straight after the 0-2 start?
And 2 of those were big comebacks. They were down double digits in 2 of those.
That's correct.
The road, right? Didn't they win at Tennessee and then at LSU with the heroic shot?
Both times double figures from behind.
Yeah.
So what's going on here? With Kentucky?
Maybe the guy can coach a little bit. I mean, I know we all think Kentucky should be 32-2 every year. That ain't happening in today's college basketball world.
I've said a couple of other places. Did I say it on one of these shows on college basketball coast to coast? They wanted to run John Calipari out because he wasn't winning enough. It got stale. You bring a favorite son in who was part of the national championship team in '96 with Rick Pitino, by the way, at Kentucky, and you don't want to give him at least a second SEC season, if not a third season, to see what he can do.
Give him some time.
And now, lo and behold, you give him some time. Oweh has been playing great out of the low post. They've shot it a little better. I got to confess, I did not see a lot of this game with Texas today.
I didn't either.
But that's 5 straight wins. Or Ole Miss today. Ole Miss in the game that they moved up. They beat Texas the other night. And I realize this is not Florida, who they still have to play again. This is not Alabama or Arkansas. Calipari's Arkansas team beat LSU tonight. But 5 wins in a row is 5 wins in a row in the SEC.
And keep an eye on it. I'll give you another name to keep an eye on. A guy that came from mid-level Ohio Valley, the SoCon, Bucky McMillan in that Texas A&M team. Top of the SEC. They have an interesting style of play. Keep an eye on Texas A&M and Bucky McMillan in year 1 in A&M. And by the way, Buzz Williams, who left there, what a disaster that's turning into in Maryland.
Yeah, he's a mess. They got killed again. So Maryland having a rough year, but you're right. The Aggies can play. Listen, great stuff tonight. Thank you to Ari Russell hanging out with us earlier from New York. Matt Zemek there in Denver. You and I are in Florida. Everybody, again, that's seeing this at some point that's in the way of all this snow and sleet and ice all the way across the South, the Southwest,
safe.
the Southeast, and then now moving to the North and the Northeast in New England. Stay safe. I know power outages are going to be a problem, etc.
Stay off the roads if you don't need
my
to be on
gosh.
the roads.
Crazy. Listen, I had fun talking college hoops with you tonight, my friend. Let's do this again soon as we get in this groove on Saturday nights and other times here. They got to keep it locked in on college basketball coast to coast. We got it right up there on the screen. Make sure that you're hanging out on the YouTube channel, College Basketball Coast to Coast, at CBB Coast to Coast on Twitter. Follow Jason at JPO Sports, as you see on the screen. If you're watching us, if you're hearing us on the pod after the fact, again, JPO Sports to follow Jason. Follow me at Buck Sideline Guy, BUC, Buck Sideline Guy. Thanks to Ari Russell. Thanks to Matt Zemek. Jason Powers, have a great rest of the weekend. Let's have a good week.
Technology's great with your new computer, man.
New
Everything
computer
looking
is
good.
great. Technology is great. We love it. And we thank all of you for being with us on College Basketball Coast to Coast for a Saturday night here live.